Good afternoon and welcome to the Daily Mirror's Facebook Live with me, Emmeline Saunders. And this afternoon, I'm very excited to say that we are joined by none other than Justine Roberts, the founder of Mumsnet and mother of four and all-round businesswoman extraordinaire. So welcome, Justine.
Thank you, Emmeline. What a lovely intro.
Well, it's very nice to meet you, and thank you for taking the time out of your incredibly busy schedule to join us today. You've recently been on a podcast called Make or Break, where you've been talking about how you turned down a multi-million-pound investment back when Mumsnet was just a glimmer in your eye. And I'm really interested to know why you made that decision. So do you want to just talk us through the foundation of Mumsnet and why you made that decision?
Yeah, so well, it was a long time ago, first of all. So this was back in sort of late 99, early 2000. And the dot-com was well and truly, the dot-com bubble was well and truly growing at that point. And everyone was very excited about the internet and internet startups. And I was pitching around for investment in my idea. And one guy was quite interested in the idea. But there was one problem with it, as he put it, which was me. And he was prepared to put £4.5 million in, but he wanted someone else to run it. And that someone else was a young, I think he was about 25-year-old male who didn't have kids. And I thought, probably slightly madly, that it was too soon to stop before I'd started. And someone running Mumsnet should probably be a mum at least. So I said no to that investment. And then very soon after that, the dot-com bubble burst, and that was the end of any prospect of investment for many, many years.
So how did you build up Mumsnet after that?
Well, it was all bootstrapped really in the back bedroom. We had no money. Luckily we didn't have any great expenses because we didn't raise money. So we didn't have a big office. We didn't have a big team. And we just really had ourselves and our own resources. And in my case, some incredibly cheap childcare to look after my 1-year-old twins while I sort of fended them off in my back bedroom.
So twins as well, because I think I've read somewhere that you kind of conceived of Mumsnet after a holiday from hell with them. That's
right. Yeah, the idea from Mumsnet came when it was the first family holiday I'd done with my 1-year-olds or nearly 1-year-olds, and we made all the decisions we made were wrong. We chose the wrong resort, the wrong destination. It was definitely the wrong time zone, and frankly, it was the wrong children as well, and it was an unmitigated disaster. So us and all the other parents at this so-called family-friendly resort were bemoaning our choice, and it occurred to me that there was this thing called the internet where you could tap into the wisdom of others about things like first family holidays, but also, importantly, questions like how to deal with mother-in-laws and how to get your kid to sleep through the night. So all things that we're not really trained for, but are really quite important to our well-being and happiness and the happiness of our offspring.
I think that's a really important point you make as well, that it's not just about the parenting aspect. It's a really broad breadth of topics, isn't it? Like mother-in-laws from hell. I mean, I was introduced to Mumsnet, I think, from Googling a recipe, and as you can see here, some of my favourite threads have been clicked on. But yeah, it's an incredible site, isn't it? And how many users do you have now?
So we've got about 8 million monthly unique users.
Wow.
I reckon that's sort of 1 in 4 parents in the UK use Mumsnet regularly. And yeah, it's sort of grown because I think it's really useful to be able to tap in anonymously to a very wise crowd, and Mumsnet is a very wise crowd.
It certainly is, yeah. I mean, you get, again, all sorts of problems answered, all sorts of incredible topics discussed. What have been some of your favourite threads throughout the Mumsnet history?
I like there are some really funny threads on Mumsnet, and it sort of gives the lie to the fact that everyone thinks that mums are really dull and not particularly witty, but actually you can really cry your eyes out reading some of those Mumsnet threads. A particular favourite of mine were the spoof ones, where there's been some threads where people pretend to be toddlers and They're moaning about their mothers who cutted up their pear again in a new shape and stuff like that. But the most famous one, the one that actually broke Mumsnet, was a thread entitled well, it was entitled "Do You Dunk," and it was about a postcoital sex routine. There you go. That one.
Oh, here we go. It's almost as if we thought this might come up.
Yeah, and it was basically someone asking whether their partners had the same postcoital sex routine as they did, and then you had about 1,000 answers of people saying no in very funny ways. No, this is not normal. And it kind of went viral around the world and brought our servers down and doubled our traffic. And you could see it spreading from country to country. So suddenly Singapore would discover penis speaker. Yeah, it was a very wonderful and strange thread. And we immediately had to upgrade our servers. That was for sure.
And I imagine that the office is quite a fun place to be when there's something like this is kicking off, because are you all discussing it as well? Are you all kind of talking amongst yourselves about what it means?
Yeah, there's a lot of well, let's say it's research, but there's a lot of time spent laughing over some of the posts on Mumsnet amongst the team, but it's all good research, so it's fine.
Yeah. And I find Mumsnet is a fantastic, and I'm not going to say waste of time, because it's not a waste. It's a very enjoyable passing away of time. But do you find yourself hooked on various threads throughout the day?
Yes, I do. And and so do our users. And a lot of our users have written and asked to be banned because it's making them such a bad parent, because ironically, reading about how to be a better parent, they're getting addicted and hooked. And of course, as you say, it's not just about parenting, it's all of life's dilemmas. They are fascinating when viewed through the eyes of people who really are telling the truth, because it's anonymous. People can really both ask truthful questions, but also give very truthful answers. So it is fascinating. It's there's quite a lot of voyeurism, I think, in some of the lives of others that are going on in Mumsnet.
Yeah, and the anonymity, I mean, it does work both ways, doesn't it? As you say, it allows you to be a lot more honest about your own experiences in a way that you couldn't be with your friends, for example. But exactly. But then we also have on the flip side of that, the trolling. Yeah. So how does Mumsnet deal with trolling?
Well, we've always invested a lot in full-time professional moderation. So we've got, unlike some of the bigger platforms, actually, real people making decisions very quickly about removing posts and banning users and investigating posts. And of course, our users are very active in spotting anyone who's basically not what they claim to be and being deliberately disruptive. So it doesn't take long for it to get reported. And once it's reported, there are real people at the end of it making very quick decisions. So we respond to reports on average in under an hour. And I've reported things actually on Twitter before, and it's taken 2 weeks to get a response. So it's So we understand that actually that's the difference we can make. We can make we want the anonymity, because it means people can get real, honest, truthful answers and ask truthful questions. But we need to guard against the thing being taken over by people who just are out there to cause upset.
And
basically.
And you mentioned other platforms like Twitter, where clearly trolling is a horrific problem over there, and there doesn't seem to be that much kind of impetus to change that at all. But do you think Mumsnet has obviously just turned 21, I guess, or is approaching its 21st birthday. Yeah, so it's kind of come of age in a time where trolling was never conceived before Mumsnet was conceived, and yet we've sort of grown past. We're now in this era where trolling is so endemic across the internet. That where do you see Mumsnet's place in that conversation about cracking down or changing the narrative around?
Well, because there's a bill going through Parliament at the moment called the Online Harms Bill, where there's a lot of talk about how you get more civilized behaviour on the web. I think the reason why, and Mumsnet is relatively civilized, it really is, compared to some of these other sort of wild west places on the web. And I don't think it's just about moderation. I think it's also about, if your community is buying into the ethos, then they also guard against bad behaviour, really, and mean behaviour and rude behaviour. So we've always said, look, we're here to make parents' lives easier, and in the end we'll remove stuff if it doesn't. And if people are being deliberately uncivil or mean, then we'll delete stuff. And our community buy into that, so they report stuff and they tell each other off. And so it's really about the people, and it is also the only platform really which is dominated by women. And I do think that makes a difference. There's less sort of aggressive orthodoxies of people who shout the loudest, shouting everyone else down. So yeah, I mean, look, nowhere's perfect, but I think it's a reasonably civilized corner of the web, of the social web, and we work hard at keeping it that way.
And I was wondering, I mean, if you're watching, by the way, please do ask your questions, because I know that Justine would love to hear what you want to ask her as well. But my question was, now there's been rumours for years that Kate Middleton is a Mumsnet member. Can you confirm or deny this?
No, we treat our members' privacy very seriously, so I would never confirm or deny that. But I did once have the privilege of meeting her husband, and I did mention whether the same rumour, and said, I hope Kate's been finding Mumsnet useful, and he didn't deny that she wasn't finding Mumsnet useful.
Interesting. I think we can take that as confirmation from the horse's mouth. And Justine, I mean, I sort of hate myself for asking this, because I think it's a really overdone thing where you ask business women about how they manage with parenting. But I do have to ask, because you have 4 children, how do you manage it all?
Yes, well, I agree with you that it's not a question that I'm sure my partner is asked very often. But yeah, I mean, my answer to that is to embrace the chaos. Really, there is no way of being sort of as perfect as you'd like to be, and I think it's really a question of prioritizing, and letting the things that don't matter quite so much to you, like ironing and baking for the cake sale slide, and carving out the time for the things that really do matter, whether that be watching a football match with your kids, or going ice skating, or whatever it is, or reading the bedtime story, or doing the morning drop off. It's just working out what the priorities are, and then being particularly slatternly about everything else.
Yeah, I am determined that if we get some dads on here, I will ask the exact same question.
Okay, well done.
Yes. So what would you be doing if Mumsnet had never existed? What would you be doing now?
Well, what I was doing when I sort of started it was writing about football and cricket, actually. So, which was not a particularly family-friendly career, which is why I think I was looking around to do something else. So I'm not sure whether it would have worked, because I mean, my experience of being in the press box at football matches is, they weren't, they didn't really work around your family, and you had to travel anywhere at the moment's notice. So, but maybe I would have done something in writing, because they are my passions. Sport is my passion, so maybe something that. But what I really wanted to do was have a work environment that allowed you to sort of have that work-life balance, to admit that your family came first and work second. And the only way I could get that really was to start my own business.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And finally, what is next for Mumsnet? What happens after this?
Well, the honest answer is you never quite know, because some of the things we do, like campaigning, we do because they bubble up on the boards, or an issue becomes an issue, and that means that we'll devote quite a lot of time to some things that we don't know what's coming up. But generally, we are in the business. We're in the process of re-platforming the site to get it onto a sort of more modern technical infrastructure, which should allow us to be able to develop more features, and make it slicker and better for people. So really, we're in the business of listening. I don't really have a 5-year plan. We basically want to allow people access to others to get great advice and entertainment, and we'll do that in whatever format or medium that they want. So whether that's, I don't know, whether that's by voice or I don't know, but involving machine learning of some kind, then we'll look at doing that.
Great. And we just had a comment from Zoe who says, Mumsnet is brilliant. Not all mums like me have given birth to their children. Some people are foster carers. I'm not sure if I'm missing anything, but it would be great to have content with adoption and fostering in mind too.
Yeah, we do actually have a forum for parents who adopt. I'm not sure about fostering. It's a good point. We'll look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks, Zoe.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching today. It's been a pleasure having you. And Justine, thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us as well. If you guys haven't checked out Mumsnet yet, if you've been under a rock for the last 20 years, go and Google something now. I guarantee you will find a link to Mumsnet and you will wake up in 3 days' time not sure what's happened to you. But yes.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you so much, Justine, and see you again soon.